36 of Matthew chapter 13, look what happens with Jesus. Now, notice how he said that the wheat is put into the barn house, inside the house, and the tares are left outside to be burned. Look what happens in verse 36. Then Jesus, who is the Word of God manifested in the flesh, sent the multitude away. Then he went into the house, and his disciples came in the house to him, saying, explain to us the parable of the tares of the field. So whatever the multitude understood of that parable, that's how they applied it towards their life. But the disciples persisted to go in and find out exactly what Jesus meant by the words that came out of his mouth. So now he's beginning to tell about these the parable of the wheat and the tare in verse 36 of Matthew 13. So let's talk about it. Then Jesus, in verse 36, sent the multitude away and went into the house, and his disciples came to him, saying, explain to us the parable of the tares of the field. In verse 37, he answered and said to them, he who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. Okay, so that's sowing. Verse 38, the field is the world, and the good seeds are the sons of the kingdom, but the tares are the sons of the wicked one, which is Satan. Verse 39, the enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is at the end of the age, and the reapers are the angels. So remember in Matthew 24, the disciples are asking him, well, when is the end of the age? You know, what's the sign of your coming in the end of the age? Okay, so this is another way of him explaining this, all right? Verse 40 goes on to say, therefore as the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so it will be at the end of this age. Verse 41, the Son of Man will send out his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all the things that offend and those who practice lawlessness. Verse 42, and will cast them into the furnace of fire. There will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Now, to further explain, and I've read this before, but it bears repeating itself. If you go to 1 Corinthians chapter 3 and notice how Paul is talking to the Corinthian church, and he says, for we are God's fellow workers. You are God's field. You are God's building. According to the grace of God, which was given to me as a wise master builder, I have laid the foundation, and another builds upon it. But let each one take heed how he builds, or how he sows. Because when it comes to God's kingdom, right, it's either that you're sowing good seeds on top of that foundation, or you're sowing bad seeds on top of that foundation, as mentioned in Matthew chapter 13. So look what he goes on further to say in verse 11. For no other foundation can anyone lay than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Now, if anyone builds on this foundation with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, straw, each one's work will become clear. For the day, in a capital D, the day of the Lord, which is a similitude to that fiery furnace, right? That day will declare it, because it will be revealed by what? By fire. Okay, and the fire will test each one's work of what sort it is. If anyone's work, verse 14, which he has built on it endures, it will receive a reward. Verse 15, if anyone's work is burned, he will suffer loss, but he himself will be saved, yet as so through fire. Okay, so you have two different groups, or two different types of sower. One who sowed good seed, one who sowed bad seed. As you can see, as the growth happens, there's a separation. And then there's a splitting of the wheat, which is the righteous ones. And there's a splitting of the tares, which had the seed of evil planted in them. Those will all be gathered and burned in the fire. But I have one more place to take you to explain this even more so. And that's in the book of Revelation.